Round like a circle in a spiral, like a wheel within a wheel, never ending or beginning, like the circles that you find in the windmills of your mind.
Visit StogieGeeks.com/Debonaire for a list of retailers who carry Debonaire cigars. Buy some today and get a little more Debonaire. Welcome back, everyone, to the Stogie Geeks Show. That's right, this is our Debonaire Ideal segment for this evening where we're going to talk about famous sports players who enjoy fine and premium cigars.
Yes.
Will Cooper is with me. Will
Absolutely.
loves sports. You love
I do.
sports.
I do.
I kind of have tunnel vision when it comes to sports. I kind of focus very much on Patriots football. That's kind of where my focus is on sports. So,
Yeah, actually, growing up in New York, there's a lot of pro sports teams, and it's more of I was more of a pro sports guy. Coming down to the Carolinas, it's very different.
it is, yeah. It's more of a college.
It's more of a college.
Yeah.
I mean, they have the Panthers, but college football and basketball are much, much bigger. Where
Well, because they didn't they didn't always have those pro sports teams. I mean, the Panthers are, if in football terms, relatively new, right?
they're relatively new, as well as the Hornets and the Hurricanes in the NHL.
I got you.
I mean, so I always looked at college sports as minor league.
Right.
Yes. It's more of a minor league. So the guys who make the pros.
Yeah.
It's not a knock on the competition or anything. It's just that's how I looked at it.
Here in Rhode Island, I know the PC Friars basketball is big. That's probably the big college sports here in Rhode Island. So everyone's PC Friars fans. But in terms of pro sports teams in New England, of course, we've got some of the teams that have been around for a long time. Bruins, Celtics, Patriots, and Red Sox.
Yeah. I mean, so you have, and what's different too in Boston, and it's kind of like when I lived in Philadelphia, it was the same way. There isn't a division. Like New York, there's two teams in each of the sports, three actually in hockey. So there's a split within the city of all those teams.
Right, yeah, because it's so densely populated.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so it's a little different with that. Philly was much more like Boston when I moved to the Philly area. And it's very much in Philadelphia. I would say Eagles first.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else much further down the food, including like Phillies, who won a World Series, but Eagles still take first, I would say.
Right. So let's talk about famous sports people. I have to say, there's a sport that I used to follow, probably secondary to football. Basketball certainly up there, as in the 90s. When I was in high school, in junior high school to a certain extent, right? That was kind of like some of the heyday in basketball. So I grew up watching the Larry Birds and Michael Jordans of the world. And Michael Jordan is certainly someone who you've seen pictures of having cigars, and is probably, would you say he's the most popular sports figure to be a public cigar aficionado?
Yes. And in fact, a little fact, and then I'll kind of tell you the caveat. Michael Jordan actually smoked at my old cigar club. However, Michael Jordan, when he smoked at the cigar club, Michael Jordan had the club to himself at certain hours.
So he bought the club out. I said it was closed.
After they closed, he would go there. Yeah, so it's not like we hung out with him or anything. But
right.
Yeah, Michael Jordan. So he's well known to smoke Cubans, but I know he likes Padrones as well.
Yeah. Well, so there's a Cigar Aficionado article from 2004, which is very well done, that lists a lot of the sports players. So I'll kind of use it as a guide, and we'll interject our own.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. You want to stick with basketball for a while?
Let's just go. Yeah. There's plenty. I got plenty. So yeah.
Well, so I mean, switching back to the Celtics, Red Auerbach. Did I say that right?
Red Auerbach.
Red Auerbach. I say that wrong sometimes, and I shouldn't, because he was kind of somewhat before my time in Celtics basketball here. But he's an iconic cigar smoker. In fact, in Mr. J's Havana Smoke Shop, there used to be, I don't know if there is today, but there was a picture of Red Auerbach smoking a cigar in the lounge.
Oh, I don't. Yeah, I think I heard that. I also know that our friend Dave Garofalo, and if he's listening, I know he does listen. He can confirm this, but I believe Red Auerbach's been in his stores or even been at events there. So I know.
That wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
Because Dave got his start, in Massachusetts, and then went to New Hampshire, as he described when he was on the show.
Yeah.
And the New England sports teams spread from Rhode Island to Mass to New Hampshire. So
Yep.
I can totally see that.
I can see that too. Yep.
But again, that was kind of before my time. So I'm not too familiar with that kind of era.
Yeah, I mean, by the time, I don't remember the era, but I mean, he was in the general manager and president role by the time I remember, and he was known to have a cigar. There was no question Red Auerbach would light up a cigar.
Right.
And you knew that, especially when the Celtics were winning with Bird in the 80s.
Right. Yeah, and I was still young in the 80s. Not talking about my age on the show, but
Yeah. Yeah, we have in New York City. The Knicks had John Starks, who is a cigar enthusiast, and he's put his name behind a brand as well.
Oh, interesting! I didn't know that.
It's called Legends. It's called Legends. I think the brand's more of a regional brand in New York, but so he's a cigar enthusiast, and he's a guy from the '90s, so a little more recent.
Basketball in the '80s or '90s was just epic. I mean, let's get at the topic of cigars, but when we're talking about a lot of players from that era, or those two eras, right? And owners as well, and managers. That was just an iconic. I don't know if we'll ever see those eras. I hope we do someday in basketball. When we had, Larry Bird playing against Michael Jordan, in the Dream Team, that went to the Olympics and all.
Yeah.
That was just unbelievable basketball players, and a lot of them cigar smokers that we mentioned.
Yeah, no, very true. I mean, another one in the NBA, and we know the Dallas Mavericks. We've had the folks from Tierra Volcán on the show, and they've talked about Dirk Nowitzki. And I think if you look at those Mavericks championship pictures, they have cigars, so that's a little more recent. But
well, yeah, they were talking about Mark Cuban, right?
Yeah,
who's the owner, being a big cigar aficionado.
Yeah. But you're right, those 80s, I mean, there was some epic I mean, I remember when the Knicks took the Bulls to 7 games in the 90s. Only 2 teams ever took Jordan to 7 games, by the way. That's people don't realize that Jordan only played 7 games in his whole career. It was the Knicks and the Pacers, yep. And they won them both. And you think with the wars he's been through, but that's how dominant that team was. Yeah.
Shaquille O'Neal, I'm showed here, is listed as being a cigar aficionado.
Really?
That's what they say.
Wow.
Yep. He doesn't. They said in the article that he doesn't like to have attention drawn to his appreciation for cigars, but he is in fact a cigar smoker. He says he has a fine. Hold on. So he says Shaq is an avid collector of cars and motorcycles and keeps a fine selection of Cuban smokes in the cigar room in his California estate.
Good for him.
And hands out cigars at his guests as party favors.
That's great.
That's pretty cool, right?
Yeah, I'm going to give Shaquille a point there. That's good.
Phil Jackson also is listed on this list as well. Speaking of the Chicago Bulls.
Wow, and I can't stand him. Yeah, okay, yeah.
Well, he's a very polarizing personality.
Oh, Zen, but hey, good for him. I think I do remember seeing when he was with those Bulls teams him smoking cigars.
It says he did it as a celebratory thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, I want to thank Cigar Aficionado for putting out this article. This is I kind of just found it just before the show.
Yeah, we were talking about doing it. It's good because it steers some good discussion.
Right. Any other basketball players, Will, that you can think of?
I know I'm missing some, and
we probably are. We hit the big ones, though. I think
we hit the big ones. I think said I know, but I think we captured. I don't know if Charles Barkley is a cigar enthusiast or not. I can't.
Sure. I'm not sure.
I can't. Yeah.
I do to move into baseball. Sammy Sosa.
Yep.
Is listed here, and I mean, a couple other ones, Will.
Oh yeah. I mean, so I happened to meet him and smoke with him once, and it was a thrill. It was Mike Piazza. Yep, and very. I mean, it was he. We walked into the place I used to smoke in New York City. It's a place called Florio's, and he could not have been more personable and a regular guy.
He was a Yankee?
Catcher for the Mets.
Mets. I knew it was a New York team. Yeah.
Yeah, he had just retired. It was just post-retirement, and it was actually a couple of days before that whole Mitchell report. Is it the Mitchell report? That whole report was coming out with the steroid guys, and I knew it when I was talking to him that report was coming out, but it didn't matter to me. He was just a really great guy.
Well, it's interesting. We talk about baseball players, and a lot of them come from the Dominican Republic, because baseball is big in the Dominican Republic, which is also frequently the largest supplier of tobacco and cigars. Although some people report Nicaragua as being, they kind of go back and forth. Alex Rodriguez, also Dominican, born in the Dominican.
Forget about him. He is listed.
He is listed in this article as being a cigar smoker.
Yeah, no, you don't think of that, but
he retired. He retired last year or the year before.
He's still playing.
He is still. I thought he retired.
No, he hasn't retired yet.
Okay. Goes to show how much I follow baseball now.
I mean, obviously there's a big name, and he's been in the cigar business. Is Louis Tiant?
Yes.
Of El Tiante, big, and I met him at IPCPR. He was smoking cigars. He's in his 70s right now. He looked great as well. Jack McKeon, he was the manager of the Florida Marlins when they won the World Series in, I think it was 2003. And he was always known to be chomping on a cigar in the dugout, as well as, I think Jim Leland, who was also a baseball manager, was more of a cigarette guy, but Jack McKeon was always chomping on a cigar in the dugout.
Interesting. What about football now?
Football's an interesting one. I do know LT is a cigar smoker.
Oh,
that
really?
I do know. Yes, LT is a cigar smoker, as well as there's another, for Giants fans, know this guy Leonard Marshall, big cigar smoker, as well.
Now, it's interesting we talk about LT and Michael Jordan in the same conversation. Talk about two dominant players of their respective sports.
Yeah.
Like hands down.
That. Yeah.
And of course, being a New England sports fan, I'm not a huge Giants fan, but man, props to LT. I mean, what a outstanding player. One of the best in the game.
I'm not the biggest fan of LT personally.
No.
And I'll say that. There's a lot I don't like about him personally, and I've heard of some stuff off the field, how he's treated fans, but I respect him as a player.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Actually, two sports stars. One's a football, and we left this one out for baseball. How can we forget it? From Rocky Patel, we have Ray Lewis and Gary Sheffield. Yep. So
Sheffield has got a couple cigars, right?
Yeah. Not only that, when Sheffield, who's commentating in the baseball playoffs last year, he was giving out his cigar of the game. He was giving out his cigar to the best player of the game, and he had a bundle of the Gary Sheffield cigars on the sports desk out there, which was really cool.
That's awesome
to see. Yep. But now Ray Lewis is following suit. Now he's starting to get out and do events with that.
And Ray Lewis is doing his deal is with Rocky Patel.
Yep. In fact, I have the cigar, by the way. I just got the cigar. I haven't smoked it yet. Yep. So they look similar, in terms of the packaging. The Gary Sheffield's more blue and orange for his Mets, and the Ray Lewis is more purple for the Ravens, purple and black for the Ravens.
And why not ride on that marketing, right?
Right.
To honor the, kind of go along with the team that makes sense.
Yeah. So they're pushing those more as event cigars, but they've been successful at it.
Sticking with the football theme, can't forget Mike Ditka.
I think I've told the story how Mike Ditka told me how he likes big ring gauge cigars and made sure he made a point of that to me.
Well, I would expect nothing less from Mike Ditka.
Exactly. We've talked a lot about Ditka. He loves cigars. I've never seen him at his restaurants in Chicago, but he does own restaurants and he is there frequently. And I think before the smoking laws, you would see him smoking at those restaurants, his cigars.
So
He had other brands. Yeah.
back in 2004, it says that he owned Mike Ditka's restaurant, as you said, in a cigar-friendly steakhouse in cigar-friendly Chicago.
I was, like I said, I had not been there with him there, but I do know, yeah, the Ditka's was a very it was I don't know if it's still there, but they used to have an incredible pork chop there too.
Yeah, but Chicago's not so cigar smoker friendly anymore.
No, it's gotten and it's getting
gone
worse.
the complete opposite way, where they've
Yeah.
grandfathered a couple of places in, and that's it.
I mean, you think about a city. If I had to pick like the city I'd want to smoke a cigar, you think about Chicago. I mean, that's just got to be right at the top of the list. It's just, and it's a shame, yeah.
It is a shame. I mean, their laws overall are pretty draconian.
Yeah, they followed New York's lead a lot with that, which is another.
Which is
yeah.
sad. Yeah, it's sad to see that written here and know that it's changed. So
yeah,
Don Shula is listed in this list as well.
I just, when I was down in Miami, I forget who, one of the cigar people told me, and he still smokes cigars from what I understand. Apparently someone told me that Shula showed up at some place, one of these cigar manufacturers, and they were smoking with him.
Interesting.
It's very true. Yep. You wouldn't think that one. I'm sorry. It wasn't Shula. It was Dan Marino.
Oh, okay.
Dan Marino is a cigar. It was Dan Marino, yeah. But wouldn't surprise me either.
Interesting. A lot of them are listed as smoking Cuban cigars.
Yeah, and I wonder if that's more just because it's forbidden fruit. And don't forget, this was kind of post-boom, but pre what I call the second boom that we've had, with the just explosion of brands that have taken place. So,
non-Cuban brands, yeah.
Yeah, so you remember post-boom, it was still, there was a lot of crap that came out during the boom that was non-Cuban. So I could see that at the timing of this article.
People gravitate towards Cuban because the non-Cubans were,
That's when But now the non-Cubans, the qualities, compared to what 12 years ago. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Wayne Gretzky is on the list to transition into hockey, which is not a sport that I follow in any shape, form, or fashion. I mean, I get excited if the Bruins win the cup and stuff like that, and all that stuff. But not a huge follower of hockey.
I love hockey. Yeah.
Yeah, hockey is a great sport. I just don't follow it. But yeah, Gretzky's listed there.
I didn't know. Are there others listed there?
He said Gretzky began visiting cigar bars and kept a humidor filled with Ashens, Cohibas, and Hoya de Monterreys. He appeared on Cigar Aficionado cover in 1997.
So that's when he was pretty much winding down his career with the Rangers at that point.
Right.
Yeah. Interesting.
I'm just seeing who else is on the list that I don't recognize anyone. Terry Bradshaw.
I'm not a Terry Bradshaw fan. Sorry, Steelers fan.
I know his commentary and everything. Oh my God.
The guy should be doing. He wants to be a stand-up comic. Great. He's not a football announcer. I'm sorry. Great player. Nothing to take away from 4 Super Bowl rings. I'm sorry.
No, he was great.
I'm not being debonair here, but I am not a Terry
it's interesting. It's a lot of the New England commentary on Bradshaw was he wasn't that great of a quarterback because he was surrounded by such a great team, kind of thing.
Yeah, I'll give him his due though. When you win 4 Super Bowls,
you gotta have talent if you're gonna win. No matter who's around you, you gotta have talent if you're gonna win 4 Super Bowls. Yeah. I agree with that, Will.
Yeah.
But I don't think he was the one that was carrying the team.
He had a great. They had a great defense. Steel curtain. They had an unbelievable offensive line. Rocky Blyer, who it was on that team, was a running back. Is a cigar enthusiast. Rocky Blyer might be before your time, but he had an injury in Vietnam and had to overcome that.
Wow.
Now, I've been told he's a reader of Cigar Coop. I can't say if that's true. Yeah, because I do know someone in Pittsburgh who has smoked with him, but again, I'm hearing this secondhand, so hopefully he is.
And he was a running back during that Pittsburgh dynasty.
He was the number 2 guy behind Franco Harris.
Yeah.
But Rocky they did an unbelievable made-for-TV movie about Rocky's comeback from Vietnam. And Robert Urich played the role, and it was like I said, it's a great story to tell, and he is a cigar guy.
Interesting.
Yeah, so we'll be back to football. A couple of hockey guys. Phil Esposito played for the Bruins and the Rangers,
Yeah.
and he's a big cigar. He's been at IPCPR. I've seen him walking around IPCPR.
Interesting.
And Bernie Perrant, who is the Flyers goaltender for the 2 Stanley Cups, has a brand under Rocky Patel. It's a regional brand sold in the Delaware Valley in Philadelphia. It's a very good cigar, actually. So, yeah.
Any other sports figures, Will, that have their own cigars?
In boxing, I could say that I've been hearing a lot of buzz that, I mean, so it's not really rumor, but I think it's going to happen that Evander Holyfield's getting into the game of cigars sometime next year. So he's a a former heavyweight champion.
Do you
So
think do you think it's a good thing to see these sports figures supporting the cigar industry?
I do. I mean, I know the problem is they got to get behind a brand that's solid enough. But if they get behind a brand that's solid enough, and you look at what Ditka did with Camacho, no, he's not getting behind cigars that are going to win Cigar of the Year.
Right.
But it's good to see people outside of outside who's not a cigar celebrity be these brand ambassadors. I think it only helps the industry. It hurts if it's an overpriced, crappy cigar, and that's
Yeah,
where
I
it's going
agree.
to hurt. So I think what we're seeing in recent times, especially, I'll say, the first Gary Sheffield cigar, I didn't like it as much as the second. They blended Gary cigar, so it wasn't a bad cigar, but the second one I think is a lot better. So I think you guys still have the product, is what I would get at with that.
Right. Right. I mean, I think it's a good thing, and you've seen a lot of these sports figures on the cover of Cigar Aficionado, which I think help legitimize the cigar industry, showcase it as a true luxury brand, luxury hobby and luxury industry, and I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they get criticized, Cigar Aficionado, for that, but I still think and it kind of goes back to what we're doing with Debonaire Ideal. We're trying to connect things to the conduits in life. And I'll be honest, Cigar Aficionado is doing the same thing with those covers.
Right.
So they don't always have the person on there that is the hardcore cigar smoker.
No, and I've noticed that too when I read the articles in Cigar Aficionado about
Right.
the very famous people, to go even beyond sports, right? The very famous people.
Yeah.
And you want to read the article, and you want me as a cigar Stogie geek, right? I want to read the article, and I want that celebrity to be like, yeah, I love Lajero and San Andreas wrappers are great, and like really get into the geeky side, but they don't, right? They're like, yeah, I like to enjoy a cigar. It's a social lifestyle thing for them. They may like certain brands, and a lot of the article isn't even about cigars, but
Right.
it's interesting how they work it into their persona, into kind of their lifestyle, and it's more of a lifestyle thing than it is a geeking out about like which brands and which wrappers and spice and profiles and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. But I still think it's still good. Like I said, we would love to see that, but if someone says, "Hey, you know what? I like having a cigar at a celebratory thing, and that's still good enough for me. And if I can get a little insight into that, it makes me kind of more of a fan of that person just from that little bit."
Right. Yeah, I think it's overall it's good to see the famous people on the cover supporting cigars.
Yep.
And showing the general public that it's okay to smoke cigars, whereas a lot of famous people will, do the whole poo-poo thing on tobacco. They'll do the whole poo-poo thing on whatever political thing they don't like or whatever. But I think it's great to see those people support cigars, and I think it just legitimizes the whole thing as first and foremost, right, an adult thing. And secondly, this like concept of luxury and lifestyle, which I think is important to separate us out from a lot of the other negativity that's associated with tobacco.
Right, and then when there's character guys, and there was a lot of character guys we went through. Wayne Gretzky's a character guy, and he likes a cigar. That does not make him a bad guy.
But also, to speak to this segment too, I think we'd be doing it injustice if we didn't mention that these are athletes who are enjoying a cigar. And people don't associate athletes with tobacco. And I think that's
except baseball, except baseball with the chewing tobacco. I'd say that's the only
that's
one.
the only
though,
exception.
But yeah, but it's not cigar. Yeah, I agree with you in general.
Right? They associate athletes with health and all the I drink kale smoothies every morning for breakfast is the article everyone wants to read. But when Cigar Aficionado does a piece on Michael Jordan, here's one of the greatest athletes to ever live, and he's like, yeah, I enjoy cigars, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I think that's important for us as an industry. So
Absolutely, I would agree on that too.
Excellent. So that concludes our Debonaire Ideal segment for this evening. Great, iconic sports figures that enjoy cigars.
That was a fun one, yeah.
Yeah, and important to our industry. So I'm glad we did that one. We're going to take a short break now and come back with our Stogies of the week. So stay tuned. Don't go anywhere.